Pink Skies Ahead.
Let's talk about Pink Skies Ahead. This is a new comedy, kind of a dramedy that was written and directed by... Say again?
No, I would agree. I'd say dramedy. I wouldn't define it as a strict comedy.
Yeah. Because it definitely has a lot of dark elements, too. It's about mental health in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it gets pretty serious at the end.
Yeah. It was written and directed by Kelly Oxford. This is her first feature film. It stars Jessica Barden, Marcia Gay Harden, Michael McKean, Rosa Salazar, Lewis Pullman, Odeya Rush, Henry Winkler, Mary J. Blige, Evan Ross. Really good cast here.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, good cast.
The movie had its world premiere at AFI Fest last October, and it just came out Saturday on MTV Films. It had like a TV premiere. I guess it's technically like a TV movie, I suppose.
What have we become?
Hey, nothing wrong with TV movies. Usually we just watch TV movies on Netflix, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this one, I was watching this, and I was sold because, okay, it's Jessica Barden.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We like Jessica Barden on this podcast.
Yeah.
She is a strong actor.
I was going to say, because I don't even think this movie was on your radar, but I was just like, hey, there's this new movie with Jessica Barden coming out, and like the Kool-Aid Man, he just burst into MTV's office and is like, give me the screener.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it. In terms of Jessica Barden, I mean, I've been a fan of her since... The first thing I saw from her was The End of the Effing World, and I also liked her in The Lobster. I just didn't, I wasn't aware of her when I saw The Lobster, to be totally clear, right? That said, I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, I don't know. She has like an American accent. I don't know if I buy this. But then the movie does something that wins me over immediately, and I'm like, okay, here we go. This is the movie I want to watch right now. It says that it is set in 1998. And Will, you know me. You know that if a movie, that's all a movie has to do. It could have nothing to do with the 90s, and it doesn't. Yeah. But if it just says...
I think if you... Yeah. Like there's that Drake meme where it's, like him like pushing away and then like being like, oh yeah. And I think if you like 80s nostalgia, you're like, no, I don't want that. 90s nostalgia, give that to me.
Bring it on over.
Right now. Yeah.
Give it. And it's only because I'm starving for it. We don't get enough of it. I mean, come on. 90s nostalgia, we maybe get like Captain Marvel? Like, how many times are we going to mention that movie in this show?
Oh, one more doesn't hurt.
Yeah, rule 3. So this movie, it's a pretty straightforward kind of coming of age film. Our main character is 20. Impressive for Jessica Barden just because like they shot this when she was like 27 or 26. And yeah, she's like still playing younger, almost high school characters. But that's credit to her range.
It's weird for me because she's about my age in this. And I just can't think of me like playing a high schooler. But, I guess that's why I'm not an actor.
Well, you may not want to see our bit that I had planned for next week. John and Will have to pretend to be in high school again in order to stop a criminal conspiracy. It's a very original screenplay I'm working on.
Sounds pretty problematic.
But yeah, so this movie, it's kind of like I said, like a coming of age sort of thing. Our main character is named Winona, played by Jessica Barden. She's kind of in a series of Arrested Development. She can't get her license. She has blue hair. She has kind of like partier friends.
The series of Arrested Development, she's not in that, but she is in a series of Arrested Development, yes.
I was hoping, that was the joke.
Sure.
She just kind of finds herself at a bit of a crossroads. She works for her dad. She dropped out of school. And she just doesn't have like a clear idea of what she wants to do. And kind of moving from there, she's kind of like dating a guy who's going to be like a PhD, person, and he's going to get his PhD. I don't know why I phrased it that way. And she's trying to find a problem with her experience. She has like very, I need life experiences kind of personality, which is usually something that really irks me. It's like the people who like their personality is traveling because they can't just like sit still and enjoy a single moment. They're just obsessed with being a tourist in other places.
Sure.
Yeah, she just kind of finds herself like a little bit like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know that I need to to go through something. She goes to her doctor, played by Henry Winkler, and is like, diagnosed me with something. You know, he's been her pediatrician for years and years.
I was gonna say I definitely preferred the pediatrician version of Henry Winkler in this as opposed to On the Count of Three.
I was gonna say, but I was like, our listeners haven't seen that movie yet, so they won't understand.
It'll make sense to them when they see the movie. Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway,
sure.
Keep going.
Very good point. I did think about that during this, so very fair. She's just like, diagnose me with something. Give me a disease. She wants to be able, because she's a writer. She mentions that throughout the movie. She's like, she wants to, but she can't write unless she does something or goes through something. So he diagnoses her with anxiety disorder, and is like, yeah, you have anxiety. And he tries to get her to go to like a group for like people who have panic attacks. And she's like, I've never gone through this. This is ridiculous. But of course, this movie is kind of about how that sort of stuff builds and happens for the first time. It's really, really traumatic in that sense. This movie is very confusing to me. I mentioned that it was like a comedy, but then it's like a dark comedy. And the reason I struggle to like say it's one or the other is because it's like half and half, and the two never really quite go together. It's like really comedic and light, and then it'll be extremely dark and really like triggering. So I maybe that was the point. Maybe that's what Oxford was going for. What do you think?
I think it's a bit of that, and I think it's also that she's a first-time filmmaker. I don't think she's done any short films or anything like that. I haven't checked, so I could be speaking out of turn. But, I mean, she comes from a writing background, and I know, generally speaking, when writers go to direct, and they haven't had any directing experience, they tend not to always nail those tone balances. So,
I'll say Kelly Oxford. This is what I know about her. She's kind of like a blogger person. She was, in like the early 2000s, she was a stay-at-home mom, and she got into like writing online and script writing before it was like, or like kind of at the height of it, I guess. Yeah. I was going to say before, but it really was like the height of like blogging. Yeah. And she gained a huge following during that time. She was like one of the first like really big like Twitter influencers for like the writing community.
In like 2009, when that was like kind of a new thing to do.
She was in the first wave, and she kind of, she's connected to people like Diablo Cody, for example. She's written for like TV shows. Yeah, she's worked with like Jessica Alba, and one thing, she's written a few books too.
Yeah, books of essays.
Yeah, she's one of her biggest like moments of notoriety on Twitter was during the 2016 election. She was kind of at like the height of like Me Too and stuff, where she like, she was one of the ones who like used the hashtag. She wasn't the first, but she used the hashtag not okay, and was like, tweet me your first assaults, like in the aftermath of the Donald Trump tapes, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, she's very, very like hyper brand kind of person, very provocative, very outspoken about her beliefs and everything like that. I don't think she has made any short films. I think she worked on she's done something set in the 90s before that. It was like a show she was working on for Hulu, but I don't know if it ever came out. I remember hearing about it, and I think that was the last I heard of it. So now we have this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think she was involved as like a writer and an actress on that show, right? I don't know if she was directing it, but she could have been. I don't know.
I think, she was. I know she was working on it. I assume she was writing it and maybe was a showrunner.
Yeah, that makes sense. But anyway, yeah. So, new beyond the filmmaking scene. Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, I think she's pretty well known in the literary scene. Like, both of her books, I believe, have been bestsellers. But, she's not really as well known outside of like the blogging and Twitter sphere for some folks. So a little refresher isn't too bad.
Yeah. Well, I imagine a lot of people like we have younger listeners. I feel like she's not somebody like, the teens and college aged cinemaholics have probably heard of too much. Cause I to be fair, I haven't really heard from her in it feels like 4 or 5 years. So it's kind of interesting to see her come back and with this, something for MTV. And I don't know. I struggled a bit with this movie. It has things I love in it. It has actors I love. It has a story that is really personal to me. I've had panic attacks. It's something that runs in my family. It's something that I always appreciate a film having a deft hand in. And I think she depicts this sort of situation and this sort of condition really accurately, almost to a fault. But I don't think I ever quite connected with this movie. Did you?
I'm actually gonna. Well, I was hoping we would disagree secretly, but I think we're actually pretty well in line in this. I was. I was with you in the sense that, like, at the beginning of the movie, I was kind of rolling my eyes and being like, "Oh boy, here's another one of these coming of age kind of movies."
Mamma mia, here we go again.
Sure, like kind of the liberated parents, the like hyper relevant sense of time period, the outspoken young high school to college age girl. Its influences seem pretty apparent here, like Lady Bird and like Ghost World and a few other films in this vein. Like it seems like this movie's kind of emulating them in some fashion or another. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just not really. I was a little disappointed at first. I'm like, I'm not really feeling this. It just kind of feels like a lesser version of other better films. And I don't think that ever fully goes away, but once the characters get a little settled in and we do spend more time with Jessica Barden's character, I did find the film to be more endearing. Even if it didn't get like exceptionally better, it does kind of calm down and does tend to be a little bit more, like you said, personal and character focused. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of with this. I'm kind of with its vibe. I can really relate to some scenes in this. There's definitely, like you said, because it's so personal, it does, like, I can respect what it's doing, and I can get into the character's headspace and understand her. And I really think Jessica Barden does a nice job. I can agree with you that the accent does get a little taking used to, but otherwise I do think she does a nice job with this, and I think she's able to handle the stark tonal shifts a little bit easier because like she is such a star presence in this. That's like, okay, she can do both tones pretty well. It does make the transition from the more lighthearted stuff into the more heady and serious stuff a little gradual, or a little bit easier to process. But yeah, I mean, the movie itself, in terms of the narrative, it does kind of fall into a few expected beats. It does hit a lot of tropes and cliches that we've seen before, particularly one with Michael McKean's father character, where without giving anything away, Jessica Barden's character kind of assumes one thing is happening, and it's like, no, it's not this, it's this other relevant thing. And it's just like, that's been so played out at this point. It's just like, we've seen that in a million other movies. It's just like, there's other little things like that too. But I did end up reading the essay that this movie is based on, and just kind of just to pierce together what stuff is from her real life and what stuff is kind of dramatized for this. And based on what I was reading for that article, the scenes that I found myself more endeared by or found myself more impressed with tend to be the stuff that was lifted from her real life. And the things that I was kind of less okay with, I found were kind of the more like added things in here to kind of like fluff it out and kind of make it more of a like traditional Hollywoodized movie of this. And maybe just my way of saying that, like, I guess when the movie is kind of a little bit more, like we said, like from her own experience and does clearly relate to her own life, I found myself really admiring and feeling myself appealed by the movie and appreciating what she's doing. But when it's trying to like kind of be like 15 other of these movies, I find myself constantly thinking of those movies and not thinking so much about what the movie is trying to do here.
Yeah, that definitely rings true for me as well. Yeah, there were parts here that resonated and just parts that didn't. I thought about Lady Bird a lot while watching this. I thought that Lady Bird just is supremely a better put together movie about some of the same things. And what I like about Lady Bird is how it adds so much other stuff to the teen experience to make the character feel more well-rounded, right?
Yeah.
So to me, this kind of just feels like a one-note kind of experience of a film. And at the same time, there's really good dialogue in this, as you would expect from Kelly Oxford. I think that there's one piece of dialogue involving a fork that definitely going to stick out in my mind for a while, and delightfully so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
I do not have much to add. I think that I'm going to end up going with an extremely low B-. That was a C+, but the reason I'm bumping it up to B- for two reasons. One, the soundtrack
Jessica Barden. Okay.
The soundtrack is fantastic. Well, Jessica Barden's the reason this isn't a C. So it's that, the soundtrack. But then also, just going to say it, I don't want to agree with you again. I know you're going to give this thing like a C plus, maybe a C. So I'm just kidding. That's not, it's just the soundtrack.
Yeah. I would say for like an hour or so of this movie, I was wavering between. Throughout the whole thing, I was wavering between a B minus and a C plus. For like the first hour or so, I was in the C plus territory. I'm just like, I admire what the movie's doing. I'm just not really connecting with it too much. I appreciate the performances. I really like the supporting cast in this a lot. I really did enjoy Henry Winkler's performance. I thought that was going to be like kind of like too sitcom-y or weird, but like all of those scenes I thought really worked well, and I thought he had good chemistry with Jessica Barden. And I was like, I actually kind of wish there was more stuff with the with the doctor. I found this kind of appealing and sweet. But throughout the film, it's just kind of like, yeah, appreciate what it's doing, not really connecting with it. And then I want to say, like, in the last, like, 20 minutes, it kind of, once it did settle down, it really hit home its points. It resonated with me in a way I wasn't really expecting. And I guess I found myself pretty unexpectedly endeared to what Kelly Oxford was doing here as a director and filmmaker. And I was just like, oh, you know what? I don't think this is perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think she's really hitting all of her points as well as she should. Some of this is way too oversaturized. Like, some of this is too muted. Some of this is like kind of focusing on things I think I wish weren't focused on, and some aspects I kind of wish they were heightened a bit. But there's, I think, something here to be said about living with anxiety and like the idea of like kind of feeling stagnant in your life and like trying to find your like kind of core center. That it's not new, it's not fresh, but for an MTV movie, I think it generally kind of works by the end. And I don't know, I found it ultimately kind of sweet. And so I'm going to be same as you and give it a low B minus, like a very low B minus. Like I said, I don't think it quite works, but there's enough here that by the end I was just like, you know what? I appreciate its spunk. I admire what it's doing, and I didn't hate the time I had with it.
Now I think you're just matching my grade on purpose. Although, okay, I do think it's funny that you're like, as soon as this movie settles down, I thought you were going to be like, like moves out of the house and it gets a job and it just starts to get stuff together. That's when it starts to work for you.
Sure.
But yeah, no, mostly agree with your points there. And yeah, it's not a bad little film. Definitely worth seeking out if you are a fan of anybody involved and are looking for kind of a breezy Sunday afternoon watch. I think it works.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised this wasn't at Sundance, because this kind of feels like the type of movie.
Oh, yes. Or South by.
Yeah, like you'd see at like 2 p.m. on like a Sundance Saturday or something and be like, yeah, it was all right.
Yeah. Although I should say it was actually supposed to premiere at South by last year, but this thing happened. You might have heard about it.
Oh, yeah?
It kind of made things a little trickier if they were scheduled to happen in March of 2020. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I was wondering why these things that were supposed to happen in March just stopped happening. I was just like, where's my invites, guys?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you so much for listening to our show. Be sure to subscribe to Cinemaholics on your favorite podcast app of choice or find us on YouTube. See you all next time.